Time for another episode of the Behind the Book Sports Betting Series, live from the Aria Pool at the beautiful Aria Hotel here on the Strip. Gill Alexander from the Vegas Stats and Information Network, and Jay Rood, Vice President, Race and Sports, MGM Resorts International. Hello.
How's it going?
It's going well.
Yeah, it's a nice, calm day. After the last 4 days, it's been pretty hectic in the books all around the Strip.
They don't call it March sensibility, Jay. They call it March Madness.
Absolutely. That is a great quote.
He is so happy they won so much money. We'll get into it. Sweet 16 games on the way as well. It is Behind the Book, brought to you by the Play MGM app. Back with all Sweet 16 games in a moment. Behind the Book from the Aria Pool here at the beautiful Aria Hotel Casino in Vegas. Gill Alexander from VEASAN, Jay Rood, Vice President, Race and Sports, MGM Resorts International. Before we get into the Sweet 16 games, Jay, and they are good ones, how did you guys make out? I think I know the answer.
We did fairly well.
Fairly well.
We had a couple of really big games thanks to Buffalo. That was a huge game for us. A lot of people obviously backing the Arizona Wildcats in that spot. But I think we might have mentioned on this show that Buffalo was a dangerous team last week.
I think so.
So not too many people took that advice. We did well to that. And then, I mean, obviously, you have all the big upsets in the 16 over the 1. Everyone thought we cleaned up on that. We did okay to that, but it wasn't as big a game as a couple others. And then the UNC game on Sunday was a big shocker to a lot of people. So that, what little hope that they had of maybe having a profitable trip, if you're more of a favorite player, probably went down the tubes with that particular selection. But I know a lot of guys that are dog players and guys that really are selective and pick their spots. They had good trips, So overall, crowds were great. It was a good week.
If your Sunday, with all that spate of upsets, happens on Thursday instead, you guys make out like ridiculous gangbusters.
Probably an epic day. Probably like one of the biggest days ever, if we would have had the Sunday results on a Thursday or a Friday.
Biggest liability left on the board.
Ooh, Florida State by far.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, well, we had them when the field of 68 went up. We had them at 500 to 1.
Oh, I see.
We had a few people pop them at that. We had liability on them leading into it. So yeah, by far Florida State.
Okay, and Gonzaga on that list as well.
A little bit. Yeah, we faded some of that as we went along for the week.
All right, let's get into the South region. It is the first time in the history of March Madness that one region failed to put any of their top 4 seeds in. That is the case in the South. No Virginia, no Cincinnati, no Tennessee, no Arizona. Left Kansas State, Kentucky, and Loyola Chicago, Nevada. Kansas State, Kentucky, the 9 and 5 seeds respectively. Kentucky, Blue Bloods, 6-point favorites.
Yeah, they're looking like they've got a pretty good grip on what's going to happen in this region. Obviously, I think it would be great to see Nevada get in there against Kentucky. That would be a fun game. Nevada's our best case scenario from the future standpoint. Good for us to be able to root for our, someone from our home state here. So, it sets up as a weird scenario, but I think something that people are excited about. It's good to see new blood come in.
It is. Loyola Chicago touched by a higher power. They win with 0.3 seconds left against Miami after a turnover in the missed end of a front end of a 1-and-1, I should say, and then get the bounce against Tennessee. Loyola Chicago, 2-point dogs to Nevada out of the Mountain West.
Yeah, no, I mean, and Nevada too. I mean, down 14 and down 22. Come back and get the win.
Down 22 with less than 11 minutes left. They go on a 32-8 run to close out Cincinnati.
I mean, that's a collapse of epic proportion. Maybe Nevada was getting a little revenge for UNLV because Cronin sort of stuck it to us when we were trying to hire him as a coach for UNLV. Maybe a little brotherly revenge for UNLV there, which I thought it was great. Nevada, obviously, cardiac kids playing to the last second. They didn't lead in that game until 9.1 seconds left.
It's amazing.
Unbelievable run for them. So
they've led for a total of less than 5 minutes for the whole tournament so far.
Yeah,
and they are.
Here they are, and they've got a great shot to move forward. I mean, Loyola, good story there as well. A lot of people are excited about seeing them play really well. Actually, one of my supervisors in the control room at the Mirage picked them early, said they're going to do some damage, and we moved them up on our list. We had them a little bit further down. He moved them up. I said, yeah, let's go with it.
All right. Again, Kansas State, Kentucky, and Loyola Chicago, Nevada. That's in the South region, the region that has none of the top 4 seeds left in it. It's why it's March Madness. We'll get to the other regions in moments. It's just the first time since 2004 that only 4 teams seeded 1 and 2 have made it to the Sweet 16. That's why they call it March Madness. Back behind the book, Gill Alexander from VSiN, Jay Rood, Vice President Race and Sports, MGM Resorts International. It's Behind the Book, brought to you by the Play MGM app. And speaking of the app, Jay, the single biggest thing we can tell people is avoid the lines. Don't get in that where you can't make a bet. It takes you 8 minutes, 7 minutes, 5 to 8 minutes.
Just to sign up, yeah. But
download.
I mean, you get here, you might have one line to sit in to sign up for the app if you get here at the wrong time. But you stand in line once to sign up. You stand in line maybe once to cash out. If you do the prepaid card, you don't need even to stand in line to cash out.
Right.
You avoid all the congestion at the counter, and you get the benefit of being able to do the in-game on the app, which, of the areas that we performed least to this past 4 days was in-game. They picked us off on in-game a little bit. That was by far our most valuable, customer-valued proposition out there.
Yeah, and that is the truth. He's not messing with you there. Pre-flop bets, if you will. Look at these games. They come down to the last possession, ATS. You're betting minus 110 on a coin flip. Wait for the in-game, and you do that on the app. Perhaps you'd like to bet these games in-game. Florida State, Gonzaga in the West region. Gonzaga, 5.5-point favorites in that game. And number 3, Michigan, which won on a buzzer beater, which killed my Houston futures. Michigan taking on Texas A&M. A&M with their bigs just destroyed North Carolina.
They stamped their ticket to the Sweet 16 in a big way.
In a big way. Michigan, though, 3-point favorites in that game. From that region, Florida State, Gonzaga, Michigan, Texas A&M, is there one team that stands out to you?
Well, yeah, the one game that looks great to me because we're going to eliminate some liability no matter what happens is the Florida State-Gonzaga game.
Right.
And ideally, I've got the side where is favored by 5.5 in Gonzaga in hope that they move forward and eliminate our largest liability in Florida State. But, I mean, Florida State is playing as good as anybody in this tournament right now. They were down big to Xavier and somehow figured out how to come back and get that win. Gonzaga is just almost very businesslike. Gonzaga looks like a team that's been here 100 times, knows what the mission is, and is pretty focused on getting back to where they were last year and maybe finish the job. So that's an interesting matchup. And obviously Michigan is a wildly popular pick, but A&M, they were touted early in the season. A lot of people picking A&M to be a team that could be reckoned with and had some struggles, but they're right back, in it, playing as good as anybody. I mean, I've never seen UNC take a like they did in that game. I mean, there's no way to candy coat it. That's what happened.
Roy Williams with no answers. That's another theme of this tournament. Some of these coaches, Tony Bennett, Virginia, nobody has answers. Nobody can seemingly hit a free throw. And when teams get upset, they're not only getting upset at the end, it is a blowout, as you say, and that's marked this tournament.
Yeah, and I mean, really only 2 games that we really did well to on in-game was Arizona and UNC because everybody was thinking that they were going to come back pounding them, the UNC in the end game. And those are about the only 2 games that we really did well to. Everything else was, pretty close to the bone.
Well, no UNC. It's Texas A&M who used an 18-4 run to close out, or I should say, not Texas A&M. Texas A&M's going to take on Michigan. It's Florida State in the other game that used an 18-4 run to close out Xavier. They take on Gonzaga. How nice for you, FSU against Gonzaga, your 2 biggest liabilities.
Let's knock someone out.
Rooting against FSU. That's the West region. On to the East and the Midwest coming up on Behind the Book. Time for our favorite segment, Ask the Pro. Jay, you ready to be asked as a professional?
Yeah, I'll give my opinion. I don't think people are going to like it, though.
Okay, well, this is a good one. This is one that is a very common question on Ask the Pro when we get into these types of situations in sports betting. A lot of people have futures. The question is, those that are hanging on to futures right now, one of the 16 teams, and I'm talking about the ones that are not the shortest shots, but some of the longer shots, Jay, that are like 100 to 1-ish, 75 to 1-ish of the teams remaining. How do they hedge from this point forward? That's what they want to know. What would you say to that?
Well, I mean, it's going to be difficult because if a team, was 100 to 1 or 200 to 1, and they're coming up against a team that was expected to be in this position, you're not going to get great value on the team that you're going to try and hedge on. So it's going to cost you a lot of money to hedge on the money line. And if you try and do anything on the point line, you're just asking for trouble because you're going to middle yourself. And I really don't entertain hedging, unless it's something that you've got to pull some sort of profit out or break even or something on a bet.
I'm so with you on this.
Then I wait until the last game, and I almost say you wait to hedge maybe in game because you're going to find maybe some value there, especially if you can get your team, if you have a good starting 5 or something here, and they can get out to a little bit of a lead, and you're going to go maybe take a point spread, the team that was maybe a 7-point favorite, now you go out 7 points ahead, that money line correlation is going to come way down. You're going to get a lot better value on the in game, and at that point you can make a decision. If they're playing well, maybe let it gamble and go with the team that you had for a reason to begin with.
That, I think, is the final point on that. If something changed, maybe, was there an injury? But if you still have the same conviction on the team, don't treat hedging as a sport, and certainly maybe wait a couple more games if you're thinking about doing prior to the start of a game. Back on Behind the Book from the Aria pool here at the Aria Resort Casino, the beautiful pool. Gill Alexander from VSiN. Jay Rood, Vice President, Race and Sports, MGM Resorts International. Jay, time to go to the East region. It is the 4th time, only the 4th time since expansion that we have had just 7 teams seeded 1, 2, 3, or 4 advance to the Sweet 16. 1986, 1990, 2000, and this year, this region, however, has 3 of those teams, 3 of those 7, including number 1 seeded Villanova in the East region. They are 5.5-point favorites over Press Virginia. Bob Huggins' crew in very easily over Marshall in the round of 32. And then number 3 Texas Tech against number 2 Purdue, playing without their star Isaac Haas, who's got the shoulder injury. Purdue a 2-point favorite here.
Right, 2-point favorite. Texas Tech's playing really hot. Without Purdue, without their big man, offensive big man, it could be a tough task for them. But their backup freshman stepped in, did a really good job. Great defender. I think he set or tied the record for most blocks in the Big Ten or for Purdue this year as a freshman. And he's going to need to play some really great defense against Texas Tech. Chris Beard's got that team playing pretty good right now. It's going to be an interesting game for sure.
Jay, I don't know if you know this. I do a show at the Vegas Stats and Information Network called The Numbers Game. And on that show,
I do know that.
I have a championship formula. You've been kind enough to come on the show many times. A tried and true championship formula, 6 parameters that have applied to every championship team over the last 25, 30 years. One exception, 2014 UConn Huskies, bit of an outlier. But one of the 2 teams that had qualified, one team's on the fringe, Villanova, the big one's coming up in the next region. But Villanova, they fit the criteria, at least for now, but they've got their work cut out for them against West Virginia.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're going to be a 5.5-point favorite, which isn't, for a 1 seed over a 5, probably a fairly short price. But Virginia's style could be really difficult for them, West Virginia style. And Huggins, good coach. I mean, I think he scares probably 2 points into his players alone each game. So, he's gonna be really pushing this team to get the best that they can out of them. That's going to be a great game, I think. I think Villanova, obviously, probably maybe one of the most talented teams left in the tournament for sure.
Oh yeah.
How about my sum of all seeds, 12.5? How bad did I screw that up this year? I mean, we could have like 20.5 points in the final 4 of all the seeds.
That's why you're behind the counter.
That's right. You got that right.
That's
I collect
why.
a paycheck for a reason.
We'll
I'm
see.
not the greatest gambler. Very not disciplined enough to be a gambler.
We'll see if Jalen Brunch and Mikhail Bridges and the rest of the Villanova crew can get to the promised land. Got to get through West Virginia. Got to get through the winner of Texas Tech, Purdue. The team that most qualifies in the championship formula, they're in the Midwest region. It's next on Behind the Book. Who are they? The final region here, Jay, in March Madness that we haven't gotten to, the Midwest region. That is number 1 Kansas. The Jayhawks in the Sweet 16 as the number 1 seed. 4-point favorites over Clemson, the number 5 seed in the Midwest out of the ACC. And then the team that fits the greatest in my championship formula, the Duke Blue Devils, the number 2 seed. 11-point favorites, the biggest spread of all Sweet 16 games against Syracuse.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a great game, a big spread. I think it's going to be a game that's either going to be really close or a big blowout by Duke.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned off camera, we were talking about Krzyzewski and Boeheim.
Yes.
Know each other pretty well. Play styles that might fit into Duke's hand a little bit better. But yeah, good game. And Clemson, playing really, really well. Obviously, they have to play really well because they beat New Mexico State, my alma mater. And then just annihilated an Auburn team. So they look like a team that Kansas is going to have their hands full if they're going to try and get to the Final Four.
We do it each and every week. March Madness, obviously, what we're doing now, Sweet 16. Next week, it'll be the Final Four, as well as baseball futures as we transition into the boys of summer.
Yeah, fun. Yeah, good times with baseball, It's about all that's going to be left on the docket, a little baseball, a little World Cup, and then, Masters right around the corner.
Cannot wait for the Masters. We're doing it from the Aria Pool. Once again, if you haven't been to Las Vegas, if you haven't been to the Aria, it is a beautiful property, the Aria Hotel Casino here. The sportsbook run by the fabulous Jeff Hoos, and of course the pool,
Yes,
where we are hanging out, just glorious out here. And the weather's only going to get better and better and better. Hope you come down. If you want to make bets, you can go to any MGM property, including here at the Aria. As always, we appreciate you watching Behind the Book. For Jay Rood, Vice President, Race and Sports, MGM Resorts International, Gill Alexander from the Vegas Stats and Information Network. As always, come down and sign up. Won't take you more than 5-6 minutes for the Play MGM app. Enjoy.